Imagine a massive enterprise software rollout, like the kind that promises to just completely revolutionize the way a company does business.
Right, the elusive magic bullet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, imagine that 85% of the corporate world is publicly clamoring for this technology. I mean, they are demanding it be integrated into their systems within the next 3 years.
Which is an incredibly aggressive timeline.
It is. But here's the catch.
Yeah.
Behind closed doors, a staggering 76% of those very same organizations admit their fundamental infrastructure will, literally break if they try to turn it on.
Yeah, just completely shatter.
And that is not some hypothetical scenario. That is the exact reality we're sitting in right now. Welcome to today's Deep Dive. We're looking at a recent, honestly highly revealing report from Technology Review.
It really is.
And it focuses on this aggressive, widespread shift towards something called Agentic AI.
Yeah, and Agentic AI, I mean, it is the defining technological pivot of this decade. We are moving far, far beyond the standard chatbots we've, grown accustomed to over the last few years.
Right. And for you listening, the mission of today's Deep Dive is to explore the sheer scale of this cognitive dissonance. We're looking at a business world that is just hungry for autonomous systems, yet deeply structurally unprepared for what it actually takes to govern them.
Unprepared might be an understatement, honestly.
Seriously, the gap between corporate ambition and operational reality is just vast. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, so the central paradox highlighted by the Technology Review data, it really revolves around that massive disparity you just mentioned.
The 85% versus the 76%.
Right, exactly. I mean, 85% of organizations stating they want to become agentic within a 3-year window, that shows incredible consensus. The market clearly recognizes that static reactive AI is no longer the competitive edge, right? Autonomous action is.
Right, everybody wants the shiny new toy that drives itself.
They do. But that 76% figure, the organizations admitting their operations, their data pipelines, and just their underlying architecture are entirely inadequate. It reveals a severe misunderstanding of what they're actually trying to buy.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because that 76% statistic isn't just about, missing a few software licenses or needing to update a server.
No, not at all.
That number represents widespread corporate panic. To visualize the scale of this mismatch, I want you to think of a homeowner who goes out and buys $1 million state-of-the-art smart home hub.
Oh, I love this analogy.
Right. So this system is designed to autonomously adjust ambient temperatures based on, satellite weather data. You can order groceries by interfacing directly with local supply chains and optimize the power grid of the entire house in real time.
It's a completely autonomous, self-regulating environment.
Yes. But then the homeowner brings this sleek, futuristic glass panel back to their property and realizes they live in a 150-year-old Victorian house.
Oh, man.
I mean, it hasn't even been wired for electricity yet. The pipes are made of lead. The heating system is literally a wood-burning stove.
Right.
So they are standing there in the dark, holding a 21st century brain, completely unable to actuate any physical changes because the 19th century infrastructure lacks the capacity to receive its commands.
That is exactly it. And what's fascinating here is that businesses are still treating agentic AI through the lens of legacy software procurement.
Like it's just another app to download.
Exactly. They are treating it like an upgrade to their cloud storage capacity, or, I don't know, a new user interface for their CRM. You secure the budget, you implement the software, and your employees simply learn a new dashboard.
Right. A few training seminars and you're good to go.
Yeah, but agentic AI does not function that way mechanically. We really have to separate it from the generative AI that just, writes emails or summarizes PDFs for you.
So let's break down that mechanism for the listener, because the distinction between a chatbot and an agent is super crucial here. A chatbot waits for a human prompt. It is completely inert until you ask it to do something.
Precisely. It is an isolated tool. An AI agent, on the other hand, is given a goal, and it autonomously determines the steps required to achieve that goal.
It makes its own to-do list.
Yes. And to do that, it has to interact with other software.
Yeah.
It triggers APIs, it writes and executes its own Python scripts, it queries proprietary databases, extracts the data, cross-references it, and then initiates communication with other systems or agents.
Right.
It doesn't wait for a human to hit send, it just acts.
Which means it needs an environment where those APIs are actually clean.
Yeah.
Right? Where the databases aren't just like fragmented Excel spreadsheets sitting on some manager's desktop, and where the permissions actually allow for automated action.
Yes, and that points directly to the core of the unpreparedness gap in the data. The technology review report identifies the failure points not in the silicon or the neural networks, but in three deeply structural areas:
Butcher.
people, processes, and workflows. Organizations just lack the internal frameworks required to support an entity that operates at that kind of velocity.
Okay, but wait. I have to push back on that logic on behalf of anyone listening who actually manages these systems daily.
Sure, go for it.
Because the entire selling point of agentic AI is its intelligence and its adaptability, right?
Right.
So if I bring a hyper-intelligent digital worker into a chaotic, fragmented corporate system, shouldn't its reasoning engine be able to navigate that mess? Like, why can't the AI simply map the broken workflows, identify the bottlenecks, and just bypass them to achieve its goal?
That is a very common assumption.
I mean, if it can write its own code, why do human processes matter more now than they did a decade ago?
Well, that assumption is the exact trap creating this 76% unpreparedness gap.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, an AI agent does not inherently possess the authority or the contextual mandate to redesign your corporate governance.
We can't just break the rules to get the job done.
Exactly. It is an amplifier of the environment it is placed within. It executes based on the rules, the hierarchies, and the compliance guardrails that you, the humans, have established.
Okay, walk me through a tangible example of that amplification. Like, what does that look like on a Tuesday afternoon?
Okay, let's look at a standard, highly inefficient corporate workflow. Vendor onboarding and procurement.
I don't know, everyone's favorite.
Right. In many established organizations, getting a new supplier approved is agonizing. A department head submits a request. That request goes to a procurement officer who then has to manually cross-reference the vendor against an archaic compliance database.
Probably using Internet Explorer.
Probably. Then, an approval form is emailed to a legal team, who historically takes, let's say, 5 business days to review it because they insist on manual sign-offs.
Naturally.
And finally, it goes to finance to authorize a payment gateway.
A completely manual, siloed process riddled with human latency.
Now, drop an advanced autonomous AI agent into that exact environment and give it the objective: onboard this new vendor as quickly as possible.
Okay, so what does it do?
The AI maps the existing workflow. It sees the required steps: procurement review, legal sign-off, finance authorization. The AI doesn't have the executive authority to just rewrite corporate compliance policy, right? It has to follow the chain.
So it executes the chain.
It executes the chain at machine speed. It instantaneously queries the compliance database, which, by the way, might crash because a legacy system from 2012 isn't built to handle automated, high-frequency API calls.
Oh, geez.
Simultaneously, the agent fires the approval request to the legal team's inbox. When legal doesn't respond in 3 seconds, the agent, operating on its expedite directive, might begin pinging them again.
Oh, no.
It might automatically escalate to the general counsel based on its logic parameters. I mean, it hits the structural bottleneck going 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Wow. So it doesn't bypass the dysfunction, it weaponizes it? The chaos just becomes automated.
You are scaling your own structural failures. The agent assumes the workflow is rational. When workflow is inherently irrational, designed purely around human limitations and office politics, the agent either stalls out completely or creates massive downstream disruptions by overwhelming legacy systems and human choke points.
That dramatically shifts the perspective.
Yeah.
It isn't about whether the AI is smart enough to handle the workload. It is about whether the organization is structurally coherent enough to direct that intelligence.
Exactly. Which brings us to the inevitable next phase of this data. If legacy workflows are the primary roadblock, how are companies supposed to fix them?
Right. What's the solution?
Well, the report explicitly states that organizations are being forced to fundamentally redesign the DNA of their work.
Redesign the DNA. That sounds intense.
It is incredibly difficult because it requires confronting the psychological realities of the workforce, not just upgrading the tech stack.
So what does this all mean? The source material emphasizes that fixing this gap involves rethinking how teams collaborate and make decisions.
Yes, fundamentally.
This implies that preparing for the future of work has very little to do with training employees on a new software interface. It means altering the fundamental power dynamics of the office.
And this raises an important question. What does a decentralized, agent-ready culture actually look like in practice?
Yeah, because we've never really seen one.
Right. The report suggests organizations must cultivate an agile mindset that welcomes change. And, I mean, while that sounds like standard corporate phrasing, the mechanical reality of that agility is deeply disruptive to traditional management structures.
Let's follow that logic. The traditional corporate hierarchy is designed as a vertical chain of command.
Always has been.
Information flows upward, executives or middle managers analyze that information to make a decision, and then instructions flow back downward for execution. That architecture exists specifically because humans have limited cognitive bandwidth. We need layers of oversight to prevent catastrophic errors.
But an agentic AI does not have those cognitive limits. Imagine a supply chain scenario. A global logistics company deploys an agentic AI to monitor maritime shipping routes, weather patterns, and real-time port congestion data.
Okay, tracking the whole ocean.
Right. The agent detects a severe storm system developing in the Pacific that will delay a major shipment by 2 weeks, costing the company millions in penalties.
A human analyst might take a day to compile that report, present it to a regional manager, who then takes it to a VP for a decision on rerouting.
Exactly. But the agentic AI can instantly calculate the optimal alternative route, check fuel costs, verify port availability, and prepare the rerouting commands within milliseconds.
That's incredible.
It is. But if your organizational workflow dictates that the AI must pause, generate a PDF report, and wait for a human vice president to physically click an approve button during a Tuesday morning steering committee meeting, you have completely defeated the purpose of the technology.
Because by then, the storm hits. The opportunity cost is lost.
Precisely.
So the structural redesign requires decentralizing that decision-making process. The human actually steps out of the day-to-day execution loop.
The human shifts from being an executor or a gatekeeper to being an auditor and a parameter designer.
Okay, unpack that a bit. Parameter designer.
The manager's job is no longer to approve the specific route change. Their job is to design the financial and ethical parameters within which the AI is allowed to make route changes autonomously.
Oh, I see. Like setting the rules of the game.
Exactly. You tell the agent, you may reroute autonomously as long as the fuel cost increase does not exceed 12% and the new port complies with our labor standards. Once those guardrails are set, the agent operates freely.
I see a massive psychological problem there, though.
Oh, huge.
That requires a monumental shift in human behavior. In most corporate environments, an employee's perceived value and their job security is intrinsically tied to the decisions they are authorized to make. Being a gatekeeper is a form of corporate power.
It is the primary currency of middle management.
Yes. So if we redesign workflows so that AI agents are making the day-to-day operational calls, we are asking human managers to willingly surrender their perceived power.
Which is terrifying for them.
If my entire career has been built on being the person who signs off on the vendor budget, and suddenly an agent is autonomously negotiating and executing those contracts within a parameter I set once a quarter, what is my value on a Tuesday afternoon?
That psychological friction is exactly why 76% of companies are failing this transition. The technology is holding up a mirror to the company's internal culture. When people feel their relevance is threatened, they do not cultivate an agile mindset.
No, they become intensely territorial.
Exactly.
They will actively sabotage the workflow.
Consciously or subconsciously, yes.
A territorial manager will insist on inserting manual review stages into an automated pipeline, claiming it's for, quality assurance or compliance safety.
Right, adding red tape to justify their job.
Yeah.
Yes. They will refuse to trust the data the agent outputs. They will hoard access to specific databases, refusing to grant the AI the necessary API permissions. They will artificially handicap the digital workforce to ensure they remain the indispensable bottleneck.
Man, so how does a company practically survive this transition? Because you can't just fire all your middle managers and let the AI run wild without human oversight.
No, that would be a disaster.
Right. So how do you shift a culture from gatekeeping to parameter setting?
It requires a fundamental restructuring of how performance is measured and incentivized. Organizations have to change their key performance indicators, their KPIs.
Okay.
If a manager is currently evaluated based on the volume of approvals they process or the size of the team they directly oversee, they will inherently fight agentic integration.
Because the AI shrinks their team and automates their approvals. It ruins their metrics.
Right. So the organization must pivot the KPI. The manager must be evaluated on the efficiency and the strategic output of the automated systems they oversee.
Ah, that makes sense.
Their value is no longer in making 1,000 micro-decisions. Their value is in how elegantly they have designed the logic frameworks for their AI agents. You have to reward humans for successfully automating themselves out of the mundane execution loops, rather than punishing them for a perceived loss of daily activity.
That means HR, executive leadership, and internal communications all have to be completely aligned before the IT department even writes the first line of code.
Absolutely.
If your corporate culture is built on trust, psychological safety, and clear strategic alignment, you can train your workforce to transition from operators to orchestrators, and then the AI will amplify that trust and make the company incredibly agile.
But if your culture is built on silos, opaque communication, and micromanagement, deploying agentic AI will simply expose and accelerate that dysfunction until the system fractures. It is the ultimate corporate stress test.
Which perfectly synthesizes the journey we've mapped out from this technology review data today. I mean, we started by looking at this incredible disparity. 85% of companies desperately wanting to live in an autonomous agentic future, but 76% realizing their Victorian-era organizational structures are completely incompatible with that reality.
The road to becoming agentic is rich with operational potential, but the obstacles are foundational, not technical.
Merely wanting the technology or having the capital to purchase it is no longer the differentiator here.
No, everyone has the budget.
The software is ready, but the human infrastructure is not. For organizations to survive this pivot, they have to tear down and rebuild their internal dynamics. They must retrain their people to let go of legacy power structures, dismantle broken processes before automating them, and cultivate a culture where human oversight is about designing logic, not policing execution.
And as we consider the profound nature of that organizational redesign, I really want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
We have spent this entire discussion rethinking how human teams must collaborate and delegate decision-making authority to accommodate these AI agents. But if we trace that trajectory forward, what happens to the traditional human hierarchy itself?
Oh, that is the natural, somewhat unsettling conclusion to all of this.
Think about it. If an AI agent becomes a primary decision maker within a workflow, if it is allocated a quarterly budget, if it negotiates contracts, executes corporate strategy, and actively delegates tasks to human employees to achieve a set objective, how long until our traditional organizational charts have to change to reflect that authority?
That is a wild thought.
Right. In 3 years, when that 85% of companies finally achieve their agentic ambitions, will we see AI agents officially codified as members of the management structure?
It fundamentally breaks the concept of the org chart. I mean, you could have a director of marketing, a VP of sales, and a digital agent occupying an equivalent tier, managing its own hybrid team of software and humans. Yeah. It forces you to wonder how corporate accountability functions when the entity making the multi-million-dollar operational pivot doesn't even draw on a salary. Who conducts the performance review on a digital vice president?
It represents an entirely new frontier of workplace dynamics, where the line between tool and colleague completely dissolves.
And it all begins with ensuring the foundation of your company is actually built to support that reality before you try to plug it in. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the future, look closely at the workflows defining your own day-to-day, and we will catch you next time.